Directors like Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino have a lot of negative things to say about the superhero genre, in particular the MCU. But there is one famous director who tends to stay away from the MCU bashing circuit, and that is Steven Spielberg. Probably because he has his very own superhero universe. It's common knowledge that in the 90s, Steven Spielberg produced a lot of animated shows for the WB. Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, The Animaniacs, and a show that not a lot of people remember called Freakazoid. You see, Warner Bros. Needed new animated shows for their kids' WB block on the WB. So they called up Steven, and Steven called up Bruce Timm. Now, you might know Bruce Timm as he's the guy who created Batman the Animated Series and was also a major part of the DC animated universe. And so Steven was like, yo, Brucey boy, let's make a new superhero show for the network. Bruce, along with his writing partner Paul Dini, created the superhero Freakazoid. Freakazoid is a really manic character that's inspired by DC characters The Creeper and Madman. If you don't know those characters, basically he's a lot like The Mask in the movie The Mask. Now, Bruce wanted Freakazoid to be a classic adventure cartoon like his Batman the Animated Series, but with a heavy comedic undertone. And that's just something that Steven Spielberg disagreed with. They kept going back and forth, and Spielberg wanted it to be more and more comedic in nature until finally their differences separated them too much and Bruce stepped away from the project. So Spielberg brought in his buddy Tom Ruegger to redevelop the show to make it more like his show Animaniacs. And they still used a lot of Bruce's character designs, they just kind of threw everything else out the window. Which led to the creation of this really strange superhero show. Now, I watched every episode of Freakazoid, and it's all because I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw a clip that was really funny.
You mean don't say Candlejack?
Freakazoid, why did you say his name?
Because I wanted to do one of those funny things like, and you ever watch F Troop where Agarn says, there's no way I'm wearing a dress, absolutely not, no dress, and Forrest Tucker's like, yeah, you're wearing that dress, you're gonna wear that dress, and then they wipe, and Agarn's wearing a dress.
You! Look up, brothers!
I decided, oh, Freakazoid must be this cult classic cartoon that I'd never seen, I've missed out on, and I need to be a part of it. Freakazoid could become my favorite superhero. Like when people were talking about Batman and Iron Man, I can bring up an obscure superhero who never got a comic book run, but 2 seasons of an animated show on the Warner Bros. Kids network, and I come across as very pretentious, but intelligent. So I needed to watch this show, and luckily it's for free on Tubi. So I pulled up Tubi, I didn't sign up or make an account, I just, used their free services for free, and started my Freakazoid journey. Immediately with the first episode, I knew I was extremely wrong about what I thought the show was. I was expecting something like a Batman show, but very funny, or even something like Fairly Odd Parents. Nope, it's a sketch comedy show. Like SNL or Key and Peele. It's 20 minutes of really short animated comedy sketches that sometimes feature this character named Freakazoid and sometimes doesn't. It's heavily influenced by Monty Python. Like you can definitely tell in this one sketch called The Sewer Rescue, featuring Lord Bravery, which is a different superhero.
I fell in this hole! I'm trapped!
Fine, hold on, I'll come and get you. What's that smell?
I think I fell in the sewer!
Ow! Can't you climb out?
If I could climb out, I wouldn't be yelling help now, would I?
Well, you could have at least yelled, help, I'm trapped in a sewer.
What would that have done?
Saved me a trip.
So yeah, the show is just a ton of sketches like that. And most of them are so bizarre that it's insane that they got aired at all. Like check out this one where Freakazoid's looking for a new sidekick, which is just his hand.
No one can save you this time, Freakazoid.
That's where you're wrong, Loeb. My new sidekick will save me.
Oh yeah? Well, where is he?
I'm right here. Handman, you've come in the nick of time.
Another job well done, thanks to Handman.
My hero!
Darling.
But don't get me wrong, after watching the first 4 episodes, I was in love with Freakazoid. And I was shocked that he wasn't a bigger part of pop culture. I mean, this show was genuinely funny. And when I was doing research for it, I saw that it just didn't do well and was canceled after its 2nd season. And I wish I could say I was shocked, but I completely understand why. The show aired on early Saturday mornings when young kids were watching cartoons, And there's no way that kids understood this show. I mean, they have an entire episode in season 1 that is a parody of the 1944 movie The House of Frankenstein. All of the humor is like if you've seen that movie. Like, they have a perfect impression of the lead actor in The House of Frankenstein, Lon Chaney Jr. And, dude, kids in 1995 had no idea who Lon Chaney Jr. was. In fact, if it wasn't for my video, I watched every Universal horror movie, I wouldn't know who Lon Chaney Jr. was. The show would have definitely thrived if it was on Adult Swim or even Cartoon Network, which it did find some success on later when they ran reruns on Cartoon Network. But yeah, I can totally see why kids didn't like this show. All the jokes probably went over their head. About halfway through the first season, they take 1.5 episodes to tell one long arcing origin story for Freakazoid, which is good because up to this point, we don't really know anything about Freakazoid. Turns out he's a kid named Dexter Douglas. He's a computer nerd who gets sucked up into his computer because of a faulty microchip. And he goes, Freakazoid. So now he is a superhero named Freakazoid who can turn into Dexter and Freakazoid at will. He just has to be like if he wants to turn into Freakazoid, he goes, freak out. But if he wants to go back to being Dexter, he says, freak in. The origin story episodes were a ton of fun, and they gave you a taste of what the show would be like if it was more of a traditional animated show. But right after the origin story is over, it's right back to goofy comedy sketches. But yeah, the show is really funny. They would have Mad TV style parodies of pop culture icons like President Bill Clinton and Barbara Streisand, and they would break the fourth wall constantly. Like, they would have Steven Spielberg show up. And then the Animaniacs would show up, and then Freakazoid would argue with the Animaniacs about who Steven Spielberg likes the most. Oh, and then they would have the writers show up in the show and like pitch Freakazoid some plot points. Like they'd be like, yo, maybe you should take the Freakmobile, which is what I call my car. But yeah, really fun stuff like that. The only problem is after episode 10, I started to get kind of tired of the humor. Like, it's really funny, but Freakazoid's personality, once you've seen him in one episode, you've kind of seen them all, and that kind of goes for a lot of it. After watching season 1, I was really excited to start watching season 2 because I had read that they throw out the sketch comedy format and they go to a more traditional long arcing narrative. You know, like 20-minute episodes telling one long story instead of 5 different segments. And it felt like a totally different show. It made me wish that they had just kind of done this in the first place. I was getting to know the characters more, and Freakazoid's personality fit a lot better in the narrative style, and it wasn't just topical humor of pop culture people I had never heard of. You know, because I'm mad young. And this show was like super old. One thing though is it felt like the writers were struggling to tell a longer story. A 22-minute episode felt like it was taking forever because they were trying to take a short story and just stretch it out over 22 minutes. Like, they would add a bunch of filler. Like in season 2, episode 4, Freakazoid and his cop buddy Cosgrove, which this dynamic is a parody of Batman's relationship with Commissioner Gordon, and it's really funny. They get sucked up into this VR world, and the story just kind of drags on because like they gotta get out, and they just throw a bunch of like shots of 2 robots shooting lasers at each other, and I mean, that's pretty much the whole episode. Another really funny thing about season 2 is that since we're getting these longer stories, you notice that Freakazoid is Freakazoid like 90% of the time because, you know, him and Dexter are the same person. It's like Shazam. Like, imagine little Billy just always being Shazam. I think this is because Dexter is just not a fun character. He's not interesting at all, and Freakazoid is very interesting, but it's weird when it's like the episode is Freakazoid's with his girlfriend at the mall shopping, and it's like, do you really need to be Freakazoid? But it's, you know, she prefers Freakazoid over Dexter too. Sorry, I'm rambling about Freakazoid and Dexter's relationship. It just really boggles me. The season and the show ends with an episode where all of the villains team up to kill Freakazoid once and for all. This is a kid's show. But luckily, that carpenter dude on TV, Norm Abram, he shows up and saves the day. Which is just so funny because like no one knows who that guy is. In the whole episode, they treat him like he's a movie star. It's really funny. I like this show. And that was it. Freakazoid's over. Until the year 2020, Teen Titans Go releases an episode called Hugbees. The whole plot of this Teen Titans Go episode is that someone breaks into the WB lot and they release the Lobe, which is Freakazoid's arch nemesis. And so the Titans bring back Freakazoid. They bring back a ton of the running gags from the show, like Steven Spielberg shows up, they use this thing called Relaxovision to cover up any violence, and they bring back a few side characters like Cosgrove the cop and the narrator from the original show. It was really fun to watch this character be modernized. However, it did lead me to realize that maybe Freakazoid shouldn't be rebooted for a modern audience. Because, like, everything is meta now. Fourth wall breaks have been done to death in everything. Deadpool, She-Hulk, even outside of the superhero genre. Everything is self-aware and picks fun of itself, which I think worked really well when Freakazoid was doing it, because at the time, it was a parody of these grounded action animated shows like TMNT and Batman and Spider-Man. But now it's almost like everything is a parody of a genre and we don't actually have anything actually grounded. So there it is. Steven Spielberg produced a superhero cartoon. He has his own superhero universe. And I watched all of it, and I really liked it. Now, would I recommend you go and binge watch all of the episodes like how I did? No. No, I would not. I started watching this show because I saw a really funny clip on Twitter. And I think that's the best way to watch this show. In really funny clips on Twitter. Because the joke writing on that show is phenomenal, but in large sums, it becomes too much. But yeah, you know, so if you like this, or if you like learning about other movies and shows that not a lot of people know about, I like making videos about those things. I find them interesting. I mentioned before I made one where I watched all of the Universal Monster movies from the 30s and 40s. If you're interested, you can learn who Lon Chaney Jr. is from the Freakazoid episode. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Thanks.